It's time for the TechMobility Show with Ken Chester. Ken is a veteran journalist who doesn't always color between the lines. So, here he is, the host with the electrified personality, Ken Chester.
Real facts, real opinions, real talk. It's the TechMobility Show, your program for news, information, and perspective at the intersection of mobility and technology. I'm Ken Chester. We have plenty to discuss during this visit, so let's get started. On the docket, a major threat to public transportation, Atlanta to test autonomous mass transit, and using AI to find copper and lithium. To add your voice to the conversation, be it to share an opinion, ask a question, or even suggest a topic for future discussion, call or text the TechMobility Hotline. That number, 872-222-9793, or if you prefer, you can email the show directly, talk@techmobility.show. Be sure to check us out on social media, our YouTube channel, or our podcast streams, the Tech Mobility Podcast and Tech Mobility Topics, wherever you enjoy podcasts. You'll find us there. From the Tech Mobility News Desk. Normally, I would pull a couple of interesting stories, and I have a few here, but I feel led to respond to some of the email I've been getting lately and voicemail from listeners that have registered concerns about EVs in general, my supposed cheerleading for EVs in particular, and the alleged being forced, quote unquote, by the government to adopt EVs and ditch our gasoline-powered vehicles. I want to talk about this for a minute. If you've been listening to this program for a while, you know that I have talked about both sides. I've talked about earlier this year, my trip to Chicago and the pitfalls of public charging in this day and age. And these were public chargers that were both available, worked, and were level 3 supposed direct high-speed chargers. And how using those, I had to go 40 miles outside of my planned trip. I had to go 40 miles out my way. Took an hour extra for each stop, and I did not have to wait, by the way. This was me pulling up to the charger, plugging in. And the setbacks that I went through with trying to plan a trip that way in today's world. We also talked about surveys about the uptime and reliability of public chargers. I've talked about the limited opportunities for apartment dwellers to be able to own an EV, particularly if you didn't have a way to plug it in at your location of where you rent, or if you had public chargers nearby. Talked about all of that. My point is very simple. Electric vehicles, as we know them, is not a United States phenomenon. It is worldwide. All the domestic manufacturers, all of them, they're global players. They're looking at the world. And because of their long lead times and very heavy capital demands in launching new products, they've had to, for the last 5 or 6 years, build a completely new supply chain from scratch in order to support EV manufacturing. To the credit for the auto industries, despite the high upfront heavy investment that they have to make, over time, manufacturing EVs will actually cost them less money. I also mentioned on this program that when the domestic automakers scale up to build EVs, several things were going to happen. They were going to be looking for ways to replace the expensive rare earth metals used in EV batteries with cheaper options. That's happening now. That means nickel, cobalt, and manganese are going to be decreased over time in battery chemistries. And in fact, being widely used now, was originally created in Japan, but automakers are using this either in combination or in replacement. It's called a lithium iron battery. And it does not use cobalt. It does not use manganese. The power density is not as big, but it is good enough. And in some cases, the automakers are actually combining their traditional lithium-ion battery chemistry with the new lithium-iron battery chemistry. in order to get a battery pack that gives you both long range and short range benefits at a lower cost. The cost of batteries continue to fall. That's a fact. Automakers are getting better at manufacturing these. That will happen as they make millions and millions and millions, just like they perfected the internal combustion engine and vehicles as we know them. They spent 100 years getting the vehicle right. And now we have vehicles that don't even resemble what was for sale 20 years ago. Yet nobody's up in arms about the SUVs and crossovers and pickup trucks that we now prefer over passenger cars that for most of the history of the automobile has been what has been built. Detroit pivoted. As customers decided what they wanted, Detroit pivoted. This is happening now. Whether you accept this or not, those people in the know do accept that climate change is real, that it has real consequences. Depending where you live in the United States and where you live in the world, you're experiencing the impact of climate change and a changing climate right now. I've said this a lot, and I'm going to say this now. I am not saying that climate change creates extreme weather on its own. What I am saying, so we're clear, so you and I are clear about this, is that climate change does make more extreme weather more extreme more often. Consider it an amplifier of what's going on in nature. It doesn't necessarily create the event, but it makes the event more severe, and you get more severe events more often. That's what it does. Back to the automakers. If you are Honda, Toyota, Stellantis, General Motors, Ford, Nissan, Mercedes-Benz, Hyundai, Kia, and the like, you're looking at a 5 to 10 year investment parameter. You're looking and trying to figure out in the world, what is it that consumers are going to want? What regulatory requirements do we have to meet to sell our vehicles in these countries? And how do we do it in a way that, one, customers would be willing to buy, two, that will meet government standards, three, that will make us some money? They're looking at all these. Part of the advantage of doing this is not just the United States, but other countries do offer incentives for EVs. Now, before you get all concerned, bear this in mind. Every mile of pretty much every roadway that you enjoy now in your vehicle was probably subsidized by either state, local, or federal government. And that's either a city street or federal interstate. Who benefited? Truckers did. Who didn't benefit? The railroads. Do you realize that every mile of railroad track owned by a private railroad company was built? They own the property. They pay property taxes on every mile of rail. And that for the most part, for most of the railroads over 150 plus year history, the railroad was responsible for maintaining. The railroad was responsible for building the tracks. They didn't get until just very recently, and even then only for passenger train situations in larger cities, did railroads even see a drop of public money. And the money that is even on the table for the railroad industry pales in comparison to the money that the federal, state, and local governments spend on roads. And not just to maintain roads, but to build new ones. We're still building new highways. So this is not new. As for the government forcing us to buy EVs, the public's actually responded, and the automakers are scrambling. Right now, the most popular vehicle power plant is a hybrid. And because that was not part of their original plans, like they do, the domestic auto industry has pivoted to bring more hybrids because that is what the public wants. That is what the public is willing to spend money for. And if you need any reason to consider why hybrids are popular, I recently spent some time with an F-150 Power Boost, which is their hybrid version of their very popular F-150 pickup truck. The truck has a range of over 600 miles. 600 miles. That is in part because the hybrid part of that and being more reliable means I could roll. I drove for miles all week and could only, in my travels, even out here in the Midwest, I still, when I turned the truck back in a week later, still had over 200 miles of range. That is what we're talking about. That is what the public's looking at. The facilitation of I get more value and more transportation range out of a hybrid than I do a gasoline engine or an electric engine. And it lets me ease to the side and being a little more responsible for the economy and the ecology. The chief executive of New York City's public transit system says it's the system's number one threat. You are listening to the Tech Mobility Show.
Are you tired of juggling multiple apps and platforms for meetings, webinars, and staying connected? Look no further than AONmeetings.com, the all-in-one browser-based platform that does it all. With AON Meetings, you can effortlessly communicate with clients, host virtual meetings and webinars, and stay in touch with family and friends, all in one place and for one price. Here's the best part. You can enjoy a 30-day free trial. It's time to simplify your life and boost your productivity. AONmeetings.com, where innovation meets connection. Get started today and revolutionize the way you communicate.
Social media is the main place to be these days, and we are no exception. I'm Ken Chester, the Tech Mobility Show. If you enjoy my program, then you will also enjoy my weekly Facebook videos. From my latest vehicle reviews to timely commentary of a variety of mobility and technology-related topics, these short features are designed to inform and delight you. Be sure to watch, like, and follow us on Facebook. You can find us by typing the Tech Mobility Show in the search bar. Be sure to subscribe to our Facebook page. Social media is the place to be these days, and we're no exception. I'm Ken Chester of the Tech Mobility Show. If you enjoy my program, then you will also enjoy my weekly Instagram videos. From the latest vehicle reviews to timely commentary on a variety of mobility and technology-related topics, these short features are designed to inform and delight you. Be sure to watch, like, and follow us on Instagram. You can find us by typing the Tech Mobility Show in the search bar. For those of you that listen to podcasts, we have just the one for you. Hi, I'm Ken Chester. Tech Mobility Topics is a podcast where I upload topic-specific videos each week. Shorter than the full show, these bite-sized programs are just the thing, particularly if you're interested in a particular topic covered on the weekly radio show. From Apple Podcast to iHeartRadio and many podcast platforms in between, we got you covered. Just enter Tech Mobility Topics in the search bar wherever you listen to podcasts.
At Pontiac, our luxury cars are designed like our performance cars from the driver's point of view. Behind the wheel of a sporty Grand Prix, elegant Bonneville, or full-size six-passenger Pontiac Parisienne, you get room and comfort as well as balanced performance. You get a car that looks good and feels good, too. Grand Prix, Bonneville, Parisienne, only from Pontiac. We build excitement, Pontiac.
It's considered to be mass transit's number one existential threat in New York City. And no, it's not terrorists, homeless folks, or even crime on the subway. It's the high percentage of people who choose to evade paying the fare. Can you believe it? This is Topic A. New York City recently gave a number when it comes to people paying their fare on the buses, folks avoiding fare aversion, people not paying the fare on New York City transit buses. The number of people, 48%. 48%. The city estimates that they've lost $315 million because of that. Lost bus fares. On the subway, it's more like 14%. But that 14% costs the system to another $285 million. Not to mention that they believe that it contributes to a general atmosphere of lawlessness that could scare away riders who have other options, further reducing revenues and putting more cars on the road. Honestly, people, the standard bus and subway fare in New York City, the average is $2.90. You want to beat a fare for $2.90? Part of why this is happening in New York City, they believe, is twofold. Number one, when the pandemic occurred and ridership fell, a lot of cities made their public transportation free. And a lot of people feel now that they're trying to charge for it that they don't want to pay for it. The other thing, which is particular to New York City, is that back in 2017, the city consciously made a decision not to actively go after people who want to beat the fare, who basically won't pay it, although that's changing. Why is it changing? While a number of public transportation systems are up from the lows of the pandemic, most of them across the United States are not back to pre-pandemic numbers. Bear in mind that public transportation, public transit, has always been an issue with coming up fares. Very rarely, in fact, I don't know of any in the United States where the fare you pay is enough to support running the system. As a matter of fact, on average, it's a fraction of what they need. If they were to actually charge you what they would need at the fare box to actually run the system, it's probably 3 or 4 times what you're paying now, easily. So most of these systems are dependent on city money, state money, federal money to fill the gaps, and they are large gaps, often in the billions of dollars, to provide this service to a city or metropolitan area. Very often, the people who use it are the people who have little or no other choice. That this is the way they get to work. This is the way they get to doctor's appointments. This is the way they're able to get to grocery stores. And it's the only way for millions of people. So for this to suddenly become less safe, and they allege that fare avoidance or to evade paying a fare is not just a financial issue, but a social and safety issue. Because then it's perceived that it's less safe and people are less likely to ride it, those people who have other choices, which ends up, a sprint to the bottom. If people particularly believe that it's less safe or dangerous, they're going to be less likely to use it. And if you have other options, you're going to take the other options. Those are the people who have the money and can afford to do it. That leaves the folks that are stuck, and more stuck, because now they're riding a system that can't afford to do what it needs to do, and it's cutting service. So you have a system that's spiraling downward, all because people won't pay the fare. That just adds hurt on top of an already difficult situation for most public transit systems in the United States. Really. I did a little more research as I was looking at this story, and come to find out, and this is from the publication Government under Housing and Urban Issues, and here's the title: Big Cities Crank Up Enforcement to Collect Dwindling Transit Fares. Agencies are spending new money, lots of it in some cases, to crack down on fare evasion, with new fare gates, updated collection systems, and beefed up policing. But as always, some people are questioning, is the money you're spending worth spending, particularly if you're spending more money than the amount of dollars that you are missing from people evading fares? And that is a legitimate question in some cases. But they come back, the officials will also tell you that in some cases, fare enforcement has as much to do with emphasizing local order on trains and buses than it has to do with revenue. As big city transit systems work to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, they're anticipating a long-term plateau of lower ridership and sharply reduced fare revenue. This gloomy financial outlook has caused agencies around the country to cancel long-planned capital projects and consider cutting daily service. That run to the bottom. If we can't afford to operate the system as it is, then we've got to get costs down. Let me give you a little personal example. I'm originally from New England. I grew up, went to college in Boston. In Boston, the predominant public transportation system, which covers all the communities in eastern Massachusetts, is called the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, commonly known as the MBTA, or lovingly or hatingly, the T, by those that ride it. Been around over 100 years. Recently, the T identified just in their subway part of their system that in order to bring the system up to get over long deferred maintenance, and I'm talking 10, 20, 30 years, to overcome the deficit of maintenance they've been putting off, not to build new stuff, not to replace stuff, just to fix stuff. And that's infrastructure, signaling, tracks, and station platforms and the like. To get it up to power, $24 billion with a B, billion. That doesn't build anything new. That doesn't extend service, doesn't add trains, buses, anything. That just fixes what they have. And they're having a hard time raising it. Right now, the T is looking at a deficit of almost $1 billion for this year that they've got to come up with. And this is on top of money that communities have already put in to the tune of $480 million. This is what's going on. Trying to get money wherever you can is part of it. Trying to make sure that people perceive this transportation as safe is part of it. But if they don't get a handle on it, public transportation in the United States is going to be a real thing, particularly as money that they have experienced during the pandemic that was available that helped them plug those gaps dries up and those programs end. Getting people who want to beat the fare is just a part of a bigger story and just adds insult to injury. Autonomous vehicles may be years away from private use, but Atlanta thinks it has the answer for mass transit. This is the TechMobility Show. Do you listen to podcasts? Seems that most people do. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the TechMobility Show. If you missed any of our weekly episodes on the radio, our podcast is a great way to listen. You can find the TechMobility Podcast just about anywhere you can enjoy podcasts. Be sure to follow us. From Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and many platforms in between, we are there. Just enter the TechMobility Podcast in the search bar wherever you listen to podcasts. Social media, it's the place to be, and we're no exception. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the TechMobility Show. Several times a week, I post to TikTok several of the topics that I cover on my weekly radio show. It's another way to keep up on mobility, technology, news, and information. I've built quite a library of short videos for your viewing pleasure, so be sure to watch, like, and subscribe. That's the TechMobility Show on TikTok. Check it out. Silicon Valley autonomous transportation company Glideways, and that's spelled Glydways, has won a contract to build an experimental half-mile transit system in Atlanta, Georgia. The goal is that one day the system could shuttle travelers the 10 miles between Atlanta's convention center downtown and the airport. This is topic B. I can tell you, Atlanta traffic is horrible. People drive crazy in Atlanta, let me tell you. And the trip to the airport takes a while because it's 10 miles south and west of the city. So anything that can help that, and I don't have to fool with the highways and byways of Atlanta, I'm all for. Atlanta has a blueprint for what it perceives their transportation future is as a city, which includes a segment on public transportation. And in looking at their future, and they're looking predominantly at 2050, they turned to this one company called Glideways. They wanted to see if this is something that works. Now, you've probably never heard of Glideways. We've not ever talked about the company. So let me introduce you to this company. This company recently started in the last 10 years, and they consider themselves a leader in developing on-demand automated transit networks. And not only are they doing this in Atlanta, but they have a couple of projects going in California, San Jose City and East Contra Costa County, and now in Atlanta. For the Atlanta plan, they believe that they can, through unique vehicles and dedicated pathways or lanes, that they can transport upwards of 10,000 folk per hour in a roughly 6-foot wide lane. 10,000 folks an hour. They're not using conventional vehicles. They're developing their own vehicles. It's kind of a whole infrastructure. Now, before you poo-poo autonomous vehicle people hauling, if you've traveled Atlanta, D.C., Minneapolis, St. Paul, Dallas, Fort Worth, chances are you have already ridden in an autonomous people hauler on a dedicated path. You know, when you went downstairs to catch the little trackless trolley or the trolley to go to the next terminal, you notice there are no humans running that. That's all autonomous, running on a schedule. Some run on dedicated roads below the ground. Some run on tracks like they do in Minneapolis, St. Paul. But it's all done via software. Glideways wants to take this to the next level. And they think they can do 10,000 folks an hour. The experts say that's not possible. The numbers don't work. Now, the founders of Glideways also say that using autonomous vehicles on regular city roads would do little to solve the intractable and growing problem of urban congestion. Believe me, if you've driven through Atlanta, you would say amen. However, they also say that traditional systems such as buses and rail have become prohibitively expensive for cities around the world. To build 1 mile of freight rail, 1 mile, they're looking at $1 million a mile. If you go through cities, it's even more. And if you got a tunnel or build bridges, even more. So to build short expanses costs big money. By comparison, a 12-foot wide highway lane can carry a max of about 2,200 people an hour, just to give you an idea. Now, light rail can transport about 10,000 people an hour, but they require an even wider width. So how are they going to get this done? That is the question. And it really gets down to the vehicles they're going to want to use and the, right away that they're going to build. One of the things they're looking at in Atlanta is reaching out to Elon Musk and his Boring Company to maybe build a tube underneath the city out to the airport that would give you an exclusive, no traffic way to do this. But the experts are just not convinced the Glideways can move that many people an hour in the setup that they propose. Now, the pilot that they're proposing for Atlanta is only going to be a half a mile. So let me get this detail for you, and I can read you exactly what they are proposing out that way. Let's see. They said, let me back up a little bit. Glideways plans to make small electric-powered autonomous vehicles that travel along a fixed path. That's what they said. They also say its compact AVs can move people at rates comparable to rail at a fraction of the cost. Also said that. They are planning that, let's see, I should have this because they talked about this half mile that they're going to do. Oh, let's see. Okay. I'll find it in a minute. I can't find it right now. It always happens when I'm sharing something with you. I read it and then I've marked it, but I can't seem to find it. These vehicles are called Personal Rapid Transit, or PRTs. And in the industry, they have what is considered a dubious reputation among transportation buffs. But there's an argument that modern technology gets over a lot of the hurdles of past concepts, which relied heavily on established rail systems. A big part of what used to make these PRT systems difficult and expensive has now been solved by software. Operating autonomous cars along fixed routes is practically a trivial endeavor these days, and the sensors required are quickly becoming commoditized. Again, if you've been to any airport in the last 10 years, major airport, chances are if you were on a people hauler, it was autonomous. So this is happening. A similar concept is already operational in the UAE. Heathrow Airport used it to replace some buses in London. So that is the question. Still looking for this, and I can't understand because they said it. And they made a point of it in Atlanta, talking about what they were going to use and how they were going to use it. Yeah. But basically, it was a half a mile. Here it is. I'm sorry. It took me a minute to find it. Wrong piece of paper. Here's where they're going to launch this. The Atlanta Airport Community Improvement District selected Glideways as the key technology provider as part of the Atlanta Personal Rapid Transit Solutions team. That half-a-mile demonstration pilot would be strategically situated at the Gateway Center area in the city of College Park. The prime location will provide a mobility link between the ATL SkyTrain and the Georgia International Convention Center, extending the Gateway Center area. That's where they're going to start. And they believe that this will be able to resolve a lot of issues even in the half a mile project. Like anything, they're going to evaluate it, try to figure it out. Pundits are saying if Glideways was really serious, they would open up their technology, be transparent on what they're using, and allow other companies in to build what needs to be built to drive the prices down for everybody. So will they succeed? We'll be following Glideways and their 3 projects to find out how they're doing and if it's going to gain traction, if you pardon the pun. We're going to find out if this is the way of the future. AI is being used for a lot of different things, and this application is a global miner for copper and lithium concentrations. We are the TechMobility Show. To learn more about the TechMobility Show, start by visiting our website. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the TechMobility Show. The website is a treasure trove of information about me and the show, as well as where to find it on the radio across the country. Keep up with the happenings at the TechMobility Show by visiting techmobility.show. That's techmobility.show. You can also drop us a line at talk@techmobility.show. Did you know that TechMobility has a YouTube channel? Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the TechMobility Show. Each week, I upload a few short videos of some of the hot topics that I cover during my weekly radio program. I've designed these videos to be informative and entertaining. It's another way to keep up on current mobility and technology news and information. Be sure to watch, like, and subscribe to my channel. That's the TechMobility Show on YouTube. Check it out.
Are you tired of juggling multiple apps and platforms for meetings, webinars, and staying connected? Look no further than AONmeetings.com, the all-in-one browser-based platform that does it all. With AON Meetings, you can effortlessly communicate with clients, host virtual meetings and webinars, and stay in touch with family and friends, all in one place and for one price. Here's the best part. You can enjoy a 30-day free trial. It's time to simplify your life and boost your productivity. AONmeetings.com, where innovation meets connection. Get started today and revolutionize the way you communicate.
Social media is the place to be these days, and we're no exception. I'm Ken Chester of the TechMobility Show. If you enjoy my program, then you will also enjoy my weekly Instagram videos. From the latest vehicle reviews to timely commentary on a variety of mobility and technology-related topics, these short features are designed to inform and delight you. Be sure to watch, like, and follow us on Instagram. You can find us by typing the TechMobility Show in the search bar. The name of the company is Cobalt Metals, and it's betting that it can modernize the mining industry by using artificial intelligence to scour the earth for copper, lithium, nickel, and cobalt, the primary metals needed to make today's lithium-ion batteries for EVs. This is Topic C. In a previous segment, I talked about automakers scaling up, and as they scaled up, their ability to get away from rare earth metals that they need to make EV batteries. Recycling is a big part of that as they scour the earth for more and more. In the interim, however, between phasing out these metals and the demand for the vehicles that they're currently designing and building, you still need the metals. It is not something that suddenly, like next month or next year, oh, we don't need them anymore. Remember, we discussed, and I've told you over and over, that the auto industry is a long lead time business. They don't turn on a dime. There's a reason for that. There are many moving parts in the auto industry and many billions of dollars that they commit to development, design, testing, validation, and assembly. Even as they look to move away from these metals in the next 10 years, they're going to need them in the short term. So there's still a place for companies like Cobalt Metals. And what Cobalt Metals believes they can do using AI is to take a lot of input and a lot of data that the mining industry generates from bores in the earth and images and pictures and all the sorts of research that they do, and process all of this data in order to determine where these deposits may be. They believe that their machine learning techniques allow it to collect and analyze more sophisticated data about deposits than conventional exploration methods. And of course, you always have the pundits, and there are some in the mining industry that say that cobalt overstates AI's impact on mineral exploration, and the previous attempts at revolutionizing the industry in such ways haven't always panned out. You know, you're always going to have haters. And just because it didn't work in the past don't mean that it's not going to work in the future. So, you know, that's nice, but at the speed of technology, and that's something we talk about a lot on this program. We've seen technology accelerate in the years that I've been talking about various aspects of technology. Look how quick AI has come into the public conversation. We're talking 2 years, and suddenly AI is everywhere. And not just everywhere, that was the original AI. They are 2 to 3 versions ahead now, that they're just rolling out phenomenal stuff. You've seen the commercials where Google has introduced Gemini, which is theirs, and other tech companies have introduced their versions, Claude and others. And these versions are getting better in real time. It's not stagnant. It's not, oh, we put that out there. Okay, we're fine now. No. They're taking these and still, even literally by next year, the versions that are out this year will be obsolete. This is almost like back in the days of personal computers where memory and capability doubled every 18 months. That's where we're at. Now, Cobalt was started in 2018. A couple of fellas that were Harvard, they met at Harvard as PhD students. They were looking originally at upstream oil and gas projects in North America. But after about 18 months, they were disenchanted. They pulled the plug. Instead, what they saw was an opportunity to use these techniques they had developed to improve the forecasting of natural gas wells to tap metals. To realize their vision, they hired scores of tech-savvy workers from the likes of Apple and Google, get this now, with little experience in mining. Why? Because it's not the mining, it's the data the mining generates in order to predict where these deposits may be and, more importantly, how big they are. More than half of Cobalt's employees are data scientists or software engineers. Also, unlike the traditional mining industry, geoscientists and data scientists work in pairs on Cobalt's projects, in contrast to most traditional mining companies where geoscientists typically outnumber their data brethren. Why is that? Because things are changing. It's not so much the physical anymore. It's what they can predict based on data. Lots and lots and lots of data. And here's something that'll blow your mind. This is not necessarily up-to-date data. They can take data whenever it was available for a particular formation and process it through their models to try to get a handle on what's going on. And in fact, he did that in one project where the data was from the 1950s. Cobalt creates computer simulations of underground mineral deposits using borehole drilling, which is typical in the industry, laser guns, satellite imagery, and electromagnetic detection, among other techniques. Look at this. Electromagnetic detection and satellite imagery. Can you imagine? Satellite imagery is that good that it could be a factor in determining where underground deposits of various metals may be. Its algorithms then determine the best way to drill to test the validity of its models, helping to narrow down which models are most accurate. So they go out and do physical validation based on the models that they create and use the actual physical information to tweak the models in real time. They've got two slogans: predict everything and quantify the uncertainty. Those are key company models. By inputting new data into its models and discarding hypotheses in real time, the company can quickly refine what it's looking for. Traditionally, in the mining industry, that information could take months to collect and incorporate. People, the old adage is true: time is money. So anything that allows them to maybe condense 2 to 3 years of a project down to 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, it's golden. And it has real world consequences for those industries that need to process those raw materials. To give you context, Cobalt has more than 60 exploration projects in North America, Africa, and Australia. Unbelievable. One example really quick. Its data-driven methods proved an advantage with searching for lithium in western Quebec, up in Canada. Based on satellite imagery, Cobalt's models had initially predicted that a swath of rocks contained lithium because they had white streaks, a telltale sign. But then, field scientists discovered the white lichen on some of the rocks had tricked the models, leading to false positives. The connected with the data scientists, with the field scientists, and to create an updated model within days that avoided the imposter rocks. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but that really is. And because these folks have gotten so good at it, they have become miners and processors in their own right. They actually are building a smelter to smelter and process copper because they found this ginormous copper field in South America. We've come to the end of this visit together. Be sure to join me right here next time for our next visit. You have been listening to TechMobility Show.
The TechMobility Show is a copywritten production of TechMobility Productions Incorporated. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or any other use is prohibited without the written consent of TechMobility Productions Incorporated.
For those of you that listen to podcasts, we have just the one for you. Hi, I'm Ken Chester. TechMobility Topics is a podcast where I upload topic-specific videos each week. Shorter than the full show, these bite-sized programs are just the thing, particularly if you're interested in a particular topic covered on the weekly radio show. From Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and many podcast platforms in between, we got you covered. Just enter TechMobility Topics in the search bar wherever you listen to podcasts. Social media. It's the place to be. We're no exception. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the TechMobility Show. Several times a week, I post to TikTok several of the topics that I cover on my weekly radio show. It's another way to keep up on mobility, technology, news, and information. I've built quite a library of short videos for your viewing pleasure, so be sure to watch, like, and subscribe. That's the TechMobility Show on TikTok. Check it out. To learn more about the TechMobility Show, start by visiting our website. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the TechMobility Show. The website is a treasure trove of information about me and the show, as well as where to find it on the radio across the country. Keep up with the happenings at the TechMobility Show by visiting techmobility.show. That's techmobility.show. You can also drop us a line at talk@techmobility.show. Do you listen to podcasts? Seems that most people do. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the TechMobility Show. If you missed any of our weekly episodes on the radio, our podcast is a great way to listen. You can find the TechMobility Podcast just about anywhere you can enjoy podcasts. Be sure to follow us. From Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and many platforms in between, we are there. Just enter the TechMobility Podcast in the search bar wherever you listen to podcasts.